Thursday the 7th of August, and we're sat here once again wondering, and not for the first time, whether Celtic are actually going to sign another player before the window shuts. Because right now it feels like we're watching the same film on repeat, one day closer to the end of the transfer window and no real movement. But before diving into the transfer drama and all the ongoing uncertainty, let's rewind a bit and talk about a match that quietly carried a lot of importance. Kairat versus Slovan Bratislava. Now, if you didn't catch that game, which let's be honest, most folk probably didn't watch from start to finish, let me walk you through what happened. Kairat came out strong, proper strong. First 6 minutes, they had 3 golden opportunities. Could have been 2 or 3-0 up before. Bratislava had even caught their breath. They looked comfortable, confident, and absolutely up for it. Home advantage always makes a difference, but when you add in Slovan's long-haul travel and the whispers about the pitch conditions, the balance was clearly tipped. There was some talk from the Slovakian side about the pitch not being ideal, but from the highlights it looked alright. Certainly not a potato field. Regardless, Kairat was sharper from the off. They pressed well, moved the ball quickly, and looked like they'd been preparing for this tie for weeks. Slovan, to be fair, gradually settled into the match. They began holding on to the ball more, managed a couple of half chances, and for a spell it looked like they might ride out a storm. Then came the turning point, and you can't understate how big a moment it was. Midway through the second half, Raheem Ibrahim, already on a yellow, clatters into another challenge, and boom, second booking. Off he goes. Slovan down to 10. Men! From that moment, it was just a case of surviving. They did well, dug in deep, and for a while it genuinely looked like they'd pull off a pretty respectable 0-0 away from home. That would have put them in the driving seat for the second leg, in Bratislava, no doubt. But football's cruel, and it doesn't care how hard you've worked. 90th minute, a Kairat free kick is swung into the box. There's a bit of grappling, a tug, a shove, and the referee points to the spot. Now I've seen the replay a few times, and I'm still not convinced. It looked soft, the sort of thing that happens in every set piece, but this time the whistle blew. Up steps Dastan Satpaev, and this is where it gets really interesting. 16 years old, let that sink in. A teenager barely old enough to drive steps up in the biggest game of his career, and cool as you like buries the penalty. Sends the keeper the wrong way. Game over. 1-0 Kairat. And here's the twist. Satpaev isn't just some random youth team callop. This lad is already being tracked by Chelsea, who've agreed to sign him once he turns 18. Record. Fee for a Kazakh player. He's viewed as one of the hardest prospects in that part of the world, and now he's got a clutch Champions League goal to his name. If Celtic do end up facing Kairat Satpaev's a name to remember, there was still a bit more late drama. Kairat actually thought they'd scored a second deep into stoppage time. 97th minute or thereabouts. Ricardinho finds the net. But the flag goes up for offside. Again, one of those decisions that could go either way. Looked marginal, could easily have stood. Slovan dodged a bullet there, and even more chaos followed. Their manager, Vladimir Weiss, gets sent off from the touchline. Apparently for dissent, though, with that jacket and those trainers, he might have deserved it on fashion grounds alone. So 1-0 to Kairat, and while it gives them the edge going into the second leg, I still think Slovan Bratislava will have enough to turn it around. They've got the experience, the quality, and home advantage next time. And let's be honest, Kairat have a solid home record. 3 wins in Europe this season, no goals conceded, but they're a different side away. Travel takes a toll, and historically Kazakh clubs just don't perform well outside their own country. I get that some folk are nervous about Celtic potentially drawing Kairat in the next round. The distance, the time zones, the unfamiliarity, it all adds up. But personally, I'm not fussed. If it's Kairat, so be it. I actually think that might be better for us in terms of controlling the tie, especially at home. We've seen this before. Remember the tie against Astana a few years back? We smashed them at Celtic Park and basically ended the tie before setting foot on a plane. And the schedule isn't all that bad. If we end up going to Kazakhstan, it'll likely be on a Tuesday. That gives us enough time to get back and prepare for the next domestic match, even if it's at Ibrox. These things can be managed. The squad's got the depth, or at least it should if we get our signings done. And there's no need to panic. Speaking of signings, let's shift the spotlight to Marco Tilio. Now, this one's dragged on a bit, but it looks like he's on his way to Rapid Vienna. The structure of the deal's a loan with an option to buy at the end. Seems straightforward enough, right? But of course there's a catch. Even though Tilio hasn't featured much, hardly made a squad, never mind. Got minutes, Celtic can't quite let him go just yet. Why? Because we're light on wingers. It's that simple. One injury, maybe two, and suddenly you're turning to the B team to fill a role in a Champions League qualifier. That's the hesitation. There was an update out of Vienna just yesterday. Word is that Rapid are patient. They're happy to wait it out because they really want Tilio. Apparently they were interested even before we signed him from Melbourne City. So their desire hasn't changed, and from what's being reported, they're ready to do the deal the minute Celtic bring in a new winger. That could be today, could be tomorrow. But until it happens, Tilio stays put. Which brings us to the real issue, incomings, or the lack of them. Let's call a spade a spade. It's gone quiet. Too quiet. At the start of the window, we were moving. 4 or 5 signings early doors. But since then, only 2 names added in the last month. Shunsuke Yamada and Simunovic Pusic. That's it. For a club with Champions League ambitions, that's not enough. And the worst part is nothing feels close. There was a mention of Adam Obert yesterday. A Slovakian international defender plays in Italy for Cagliari. Still just 22, though he turns 23 this month. The reports say Celtic have made an offer, but as usual, it wasn't enough. Cagliari are apparently looking for something in the region of 6 million euros, and from the sound of it, we're a fair bit short of that. Now, here's where it gets a bit murky. Some outlets are calling Obert a centre-back who can play left-back. Others are framing him as a left-back who occasionally fills in a centre-back. So what's the truth? Did some digging, watched a few matches. And here's the deal. Obert is a left-back. That's where he's playing for Cagliari. Yes, he's featured at centre-back, but more often than not has been as part of a back three or in emergency situations. In fact, when they use a 3 at the back, he tends to play as the wing-back, not one of the 3 central defenders. That says a lot. It means his engine, his pace, and his attacking output are being utilized. This isn't your typical no-nonsense central defender who's being asked to fill in out wide. He's a fullback first and foremost. At international level, it's a bit different. Slovakia play him centrally, but that's because they've got David Hanko, probably their best player, locking down the left-back spot. So Obert slides inside. That doesn't mean he's a natural centre-half. It just means he's versatile. And versatility is useful, sure. But if we're signing him, it's to compete with Kieran Tierney. Simple as that. And let me tell you, if we do land Obert, I'd be all right with that. He's young, experienced in a top league, and seems to have all the attributes. The issue, as always, is whether we'll actually meet the asking price, or whether we'll dither until deadline day and miss out altogether. He's under contract until 2029, so Cagliari are in no rush. We need to decide if he's worth the fee, and if he is, get it done. No more lowballing. No more dragging our heels. There's more to get into, especially regarding the Japanese market and how our strategy there might be evolving, or not, under Brendan Rodgers. But before we dive into that side of things, let's just say this. If we don't start seeing movement soon, both in and out this window could start to look like a missed opportunity. We've got the platform. Champions League football is within reach. The question is, are we bold enough to take that next step? All right, let's keep going. Then and now, we move into that ever-interesting and lately ever-frustrating part of the summer Celtics transfer activity or lack thereof. And I think most supporters are starting to feel it now. The longer we sit on our hands, the more it feels like the same old story. Promises of ambition, whispers of exciting names. But when you pull the curtain back, you're left wondering if the club's actually serious about taking the next step, or just happy ticking boxes and hoping for the best. Let's circle back to Adam Obert for a moment, because that one's still bubbling away. And there's a real question about what Celtic's intention is here. Are we genuinely going after this player, or are we just floating interest to make it seem like we're active? The reports out of Sardinia, and these are coming from actual local media, and not just some click chaser in Glasgow, suggest that our bid didn't meet Cagliari's expectations. That in itself isn't shocking. Celtic lowballing in the market is practically tradition at this point. But if we've identified Obert as a legit option to compete with Kieran Tierney, who by the way isn't exactly the most durable player, then why aren't we doing everything we can to land him? You look at Obert's profile and he makes sense. Young, still developing, already an international, and crucially used to playing in a top 5 league. That's not nothing. He's faced players better than what he'll be up against most weeks in Scotland. And even though he didn't start every game last season for Cagliari, when he did play, he was used in attacking positions down the left back, left wing back, even pushed into left midfield on a few occasions. It tells you everything you need to know about how his own club sees him. As a wide player, someone with legs with a bit of flair and bite. And just to be absolutely clear, this isn't some vague claim based on a Wikipedia entry. The match. Data backs it up. Go look at Transfermarkt. He's not just occasionally slotted in at left back. It's where he plays the majority of the time. Center back for Slovakia, sure, but that's circumstance. At club level, he's a left back through and through. The reality here is that if we don't get someone like Obert over the line, we're left relying on Liam Scales as Tierney's backup. Now, no disrespect to Scales, he's a decent enough player and has proven his worth in flashes. But as your second choice left back going into a season with European football domestic cups and a title race, that's not good enough. It's not ruthless. It's not forward thinking, it's reactive. And if we want to see real progress under Brendan Rodgers, we've got to start acting like a club with purpose, not one that dithers its way through deadline day hoping for bargains. Now let's shift the focus across the globe, because another thread that keeps popping up, and not just this summer, but over the past couple of years, is our interest in the Japanese market. And this week, we had another line in the Daily. Records suggesting there's still a deal brewing involving a player from Japan. No name given, just that the club's keeping tabs and watching games in person. So the interest is real. The question is, does it still make sense for Celtic? 4 years ago, the Japanese market was a gold mine. Kyogo Hatate Maeda, these were top-tier talents in the J-League, and we got them at exactly the right time. They arrived adapted instantly and transformed our team. There was no slow introduction, no teething period. They hit the ground running. Kyogo scored straight away. Hatate and Maeda slotted right in. You knew immediately that these were players that belonged in our starting 11. But times have changed. The rest of Europe has caught up. The Bundesliga, Serie A, even mid-table sides in France and Belgium, they're all scouting Japan now, and that means Celtic no longer have first pick. The players we're linked with today aren't at the same level as the ones we brought in under Ange Postecoglou. That's not opinion, it's reality. When we signed Kyogo, he was the top scorer in Japan. Hatate was running games for Kawasaki Frontale. They were stars. Now we're looking at prospects backups, guys, with potential rather than proven pedigree. And the results speak for themselves. Look at some of the more recent signings. Kobayashi Iwasha, or even Yuki Kobayashi. None of them have truly nailed down a spot. You could argue that Yamada has shown flashes, and I actually agree. I think he's got something about him. Good feet, intelligent movement, and the sort of temperament you want in a big game. But we are yet to see him given a proper run. And that's part of the bigger issue. We're signing these players but not backing them on the pitch. Brendan, Rodgers has made a few comments that suggest he's not entirely convinced by these additions. Whether it's about their readiness, their physicality, or just a preference for more experienced players, the trust hasn't quite been there. And you've got to ask, what's the point in scouring Japan for talent if the manager isn't going to use them? There's a real risk here of falling into a pattern where we stockpile players for depth, not because they're ready to make an impact. And in the current climate, with money tighter than ever and margins thinner than they've been in years, that's a waste of resources. Celtic don't have the luxury of missing on transfers. Every signing needs to contribute, even if it's not immediately. That doesn't mean they have to start every week, but they need to push the squad forward. They need to raise the level. And right now, there's a genuine concern that we're slipping into old habits. Playing it safe in the market, refusing to take calculated risks, and ultimately making do. That's not how you build a team capable of challenging in Europe. That's how you end up stuck in the same cycle, hoping for a bit of magic from the same handful of players. Now, there was another name briefly mentioned in the media this week. Clement Bischoff, a winger currently at Brøndby. Not much concrete there yet, and to be fair, it might just be noise. One of those links that floats around for a day or two and disappears. But even that in itself is telling. We're at a point in the window where fans are clinging to any shred of potential news. A name drops on social media, and suddenly it's getting dissected, debated, and tracked. Not because there's any real substance, but because there's nothing else to talk about. The silence is deafening. We've got a match coming up against Aberdeen on Sunday, and it's a big one. Early in the season, yes, but these are the games that set the tone. Drop points here and the questions start getting louder about the squad, about the manager, about the board's ambition. Win convincingly and at least some of that noise quietens down. But either way, we need to see improvement from last weekend. That performance wasn't good enough. Disjointed, lacking sharpness, and crucially lacking a spark. It's hard to ignore the connection between that and our transfer inactivity, because these things are linked. You can't expect the squad to elevate its level when the reinforcements aren't coming. Training only takes you so far. At some point, you need fresh legs, fresh ideas, and players who can push those around them to improve. Right now, you get the sense that this squad is too comfortable. Everyone knows their place. That's not healthy in football. So what's the answer? Well, it's not complicated. It's just about doing the work, identifying the right players, being decisive in negotiations, and showing a bit of conviction. If Brendan Rodgers needs a left back, go get him one. If the squad is short on wingers, fix it. Don't wait until the last week of the window and hope for a loan deal from the Premier League's scrap heap. Be proactive. Take control of the window, because otherwise come the Champions League, we'll be asking ourselves the same questions we've asked in years past. And let's not pretend that we're strapped for cash. The club's in a strong financial position. We've made money off the previous sales. We've got European football coming. There's no excuse for inaction. This isn't about gambling the future of the club. It's about recognizing where we are and making smart, calculated decisions to push us forward. There's a real opportunity here. The league is ours to lose. Rangers are still figuring themselves out. Hearts and Aberdeen are decent but not consistent. The door is wide open for Celtic to dominate again domestically and actually show something on the European stage. But that only happens if we back it up with smart recruitment. Otherwise, we'll be sitting here next Thursday, same time, same place, asking the same questions. And there's only so long supporters will accept that before the mood turns. Let's see what the next few days bring. But make no mistake, the pressure is on. Not just on Rodgers, not just on the players, but on the club. The ball is in their court. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Callum Wilson, the prolific striker for Newcastle United, is at the center of chatter round Glasgow these days. We strong whispers suggesting the Celtic board might be eyeing him up for a sensational move to Parkhead. The mere mention of Wilson linking, why the hoops has sent fans into a frenzy, speculating on Orton Frey's shirt numbers to potential unveilings. He's a tried and tested goal scorer in the Premier League, nay do to boot that, and his profile fits the bill perfectly for what Brendan Rodgers could be looking for: experience, quality, and a killer instinct in front of goal. Nay statements have been released by either club, but insiders hint that there's been contact behind closed doors and interest might be more than just casual. Some say the gaffer wants a big-name striker to lead the line in Europe, and Wilson could be just that. Celtic supporters are already dreaming of Wilson banging them in against the Rangers and in Champions League nights at Paradise. While it's all just hearsay to new, the very idea of a Premier League hitman making the switch to the Scottish Premiership is the kind of thing that gets pubs buzzing and forums lighting up like wildfire. There's more to this than just a transfer. Rumor, this could be part of a bigger strategy by the Celtic hierarchy to strengthen the squad for both domestic and European fronts. The Hoops have dominated Scotland for years, but to take that next step, especially in the Champions League, they need players with pedigree and a bit of skill. Wilson's been dating at the highest level with Newcastle and Bournemouth, and he's nay a stranger to big games nor pressure situations. His knack for being in the right place at the right time and his ability to play after shoulder or defenders could be exactly what Celtic need. Word is Wilson's starting to consider a new challenge. Why minutes been a bit more scarce at St. James Park this season? If Celtic can guarantee him a lead role, regular football, and a chance to become a hero in front the Parkhead faithful, it might be enough to tempt him north. And it's not like he'd be leaving the top level entirely. He'd be walking. NTA, a team gunning for trebles in Europe. The possibilities there. And in Glasgow, even a whisper quickly turns into a thunder. Folk have noticed that Wilson's name's been missing from a couple of Newcastle's pre-season lineups, and it's no gone. Unnoticed among eagle-eyed Celtic fans. Some even claim that he spotted his agent in Glasgow last week. And there's been whispers of meetings taking place at fancy hotels up Hall Street. Nothing's official, but that silence can sometimes speak volumes, especially with a way Celtic. usually handle their business, tight-lipped until everything's signed, sealed, and ready for the social media reveal. Fans have been tracking private jets and shouting about Wilson is coming on Twitter like it's gospel. It could be just coincidence, but then again, it could be exactly what it looks like, a wee storm brewing. If it does happen, Wilson would be one of the biggest signings in recent memory and a proper statement of our intent for the board. He'd bring experience, firepower, and maybe most importantly, fear factor. Imagine defenders in the Premiership waking up to the realization they'll be facing Wilson week in, week out. It's no confirmed, but the feeling in the air isn't going away. This yin's got legs. If Wilson they end up in the green and white, the ripple effect will be felt across all Scottish football, but especially in the blue half of the city. There's no denying the old firm rivalry would reach new levels if Celtic bring in a striker of Wilson's class. The Gers would be forced to respond, and the whole league would be raised a peg. Celtic fans can find, well, what a player like Wilson could do against Rangers. He's got the pace, the power, and the poacher's instinct that wins derbies. Brendan Rodgers has spoken in the past about wanting ruthless finishers in his squad. And this lad ticks every box. Beyond the rivalry, it's Europe where he truly shines. Wilson's played in the Premier League his whole career, but he's never had the chance to test himself properly on the continent. Parkhead under the lights, anthem ringing, crowd bouncing. It could be a dream match. More than that, though. He could be the kind of player that inspires those around him, raising the game of the younger lads and putting Celtic firmly back on the European map. A rumor? Aye, but a tantalizing one at that. Should this deal actually come through, it wouldn't just be a coup for Celtic. It'd be a message to the rest of Scotland, to England, even to Europe. Celtic mean business. Callum Wilson, wearing the hoops, leading the line, scraping knees in muddy December nights, and smashing winners in front of the Green Brigade. That's a scenario fans can't help but imagine. It's rare that a player with that kind of CV becomes available, and even rarer for them to land in Glasgow. But money talks, ambition talks, and a chance to become a legend, that might be speaking loudest. Wilson's career's been impressive, but he's still got a few peak years in the tank. This move could offer him legacy, trophies, and a proper spotlight. If there's any truth to the noise, this deal might be closer than folk think. Albany loves a fairy tale, and this yin's got all the ingredients. Premier League marksman, European dreams, old firm drama. It's the stuff newspapers live for. And if it happens, you can bet the back pages will be plastered with one word: goal score. For no, it's rumors, but maybe, just maybe, they're true. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.